Joining me now is a welterweight fighter who defeated Sean Lally via third-round knockout at Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series Week 1 of Season 2 earlier this week. It is Chris, the Action Man Curtis, back on the program for the first time in quite a while. Chris, how are you?
What's up, guys? I'm doing good, man. I'm pretty good, man. I'm a little tired, a little sore still, but living the dream.
Good to hear. Thank you so much for taking the time just less than a week out from the fight, from the win. Congratulations. Now, before we talk about the actual fight and everything that came afterwards, what was the experience like fighting on Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series? You fought on some big stages before as the CES champ and etc., but did it feel like the biggest fight of your career just knowing what was at stake, and was it clear to you that it was a pretty big opportunity?
I knew it was a big opportunity, man, but, hilariously enough, it just felt like another fight to me, man. I knew the stakes on it, but I didn't even realize Dana White was there until after the fight, honestly.
Oh, wow.
I didn't even see him coming out. It's very weird, man. But for me, it's 23, 24 fights. I've been there a lot. I definitely didn't get starstruck, so, that's a good sign for me, at least.
And as you said, I think that's probably because you're a veteran. As you said, I think this was your 24th pro fight, if I'm not mistaken. And so some guys, look at, the first guy on the card. He was 6-0, and so that's a lot different.
Yeah, I didn't even realize Dana White was there, honestly, until it was after the fight. And I was like, oh, there he is. Sam's like, go talk to Dana White. I'm like, oh, he's over there. Yeah, so it was just another fight for me, man. I knew they were high stakes, but it wasn't overbearing pressure. It was just another fight.
I wonder if that's actually a good thing that you didn't notice that Dana was there, just because, again, you're a veteran, so you are used to these bigger stages, but perhaps knowing that Dana White's watching, perhaps a future employer of yours, maybe that would have raised the nerves a little bit.
Maybe, man, but for me, I knew what I had to do to get the win and what I had to do what I thought I had to do to get a contract. So, at that point, him being there was extra. I know what had to be done, so, his being there didn't have any effect on it.
All right, fair enough. What was the promotion like for this fight? Of course, again, you fought on these bigger stages, but with this Dana White Contender Series being attached to the UFC, you go down to Vegas a little bit before, right, and do the promotions, do the interviews, do the photo shot, the photo shoots. What was that all like?
I actually did that weeks before the fight, actually. We did all the media stuff a few weeks before the fight, probably about 4 weeks ago, something like that, 5 weeks ago, something like that. Went in, just did the promo stuff, did the interviews. I don't know, maybe I'm just jaded, man, but it all felt pretty normal to me. I've had to go, through similar songs and dance before. They had a lot more paperwork than usual, but, the same lots of photos, interviews, filling out medical stuff, all that. So, nothing too much different, just a little bit bigger scale. But, man, it just, it all feels like I've been there before, honestly.
That's interesting. Perhaps it preps younger fighters a bit better for the UFC. Just fighters that aren't as used to it as you are.
Maybe I think it just has to be it, man. I've been 11 years in, 9 years as a pro. I've done a lot of interviews and a lot of other stuff. So, I'm not nervous to have cameras on me. I'm not nervous to answer questions. It's pretty second nature, part of the job at this point.
Did it feel a little odd going into this fight, just being a veteran, being 23 fights deep into your MMA career professionally, and finally getting to this point where you're one fight away from a UFC contract?
It was. It really was kind of strange because, no one wants to sound like that guy, but I'm like, man, I've got double the fights of almost everybody on this show. Over 5 times the fights with a lot of them, and then shit, Hardy's his first fight. Times the experience. It's just funny, man, going in. I'm just like, man, I see people pacing back and forth and being nervous, and I'm in the back sleeping before the fights, just unconcerned. It's very funny for me just to be. I remember starting out fighting, and I was the kid. Now I'm the old guy in the room. It's just really funny.
You seem like a very calm person, though. It can't just be because you've been there before. You have to, just in general, be a pretty relaxed person, are you not? Is that fair?
It depends, man. In my personal life, I'm pretty manic. I'm a really out there manic dude, but I try to be low key. But especially with fighting, I try to be pretty calm. Just because I've learned in the past that nerves will ruin you. Like, nerves will fatigue you. Fatigue makes a coward out of everybody. So I just try to, I just make sure I'm relaxed. By the time I go fight, I spend 6, 7, 8 hours a day in the gym. I train every day, 7 days a week. By the time I go fight, I know that I'm prepared. I know that I couldn't have done more. So part of it's just, I've been here. I know this song and dance. And part of it's just I'm supremely confident by the time I get in there. Like, I've done everything I could possibly do. I know in my heart I couldn't have done more.
And perhaps when you see so much of smiling Sam Alvey in your life, you can't be much of a relaxed person.
Dude, Sam is definitely another reason. It's hard to be keyed up when Sam's around. He won't let you.
I bet.
But he's definitely the mood killer of all mood killers. So if you're trying to be broody or serious, Sam will ruin that for you in a heartbeat.
That's funny. Going into the card and this fight, what were your expectations? I know that's a bit of a broad question, but what were you expecting going in?
So the funny thing is, man, going in, I knew that if I lost this fight, it was over for me. But I knew that if I won this fight, especially if I did it impressively, there's no way I couldn't get a contract. Like, I've got more experience than everybody here. I'm the most rated guy on this card, hands down. Outside of Newell, I don't think anybody in this season has as much experience as me. Actually, I still got more than him. So, I knew that if I won this fight, won it impressively, I would get a contract. So, it's a flip of a coin. Like I said before, it's kind of weird because what I was expecting was the coin to land on its edge. And that's exactly what happened, to where I won impressively and got nothing. So that's the one thing I didn't expect.
Yeah, so I guess that was the major surprise of the whole night. We'll talk about that. But before that, as far as the actual fight goes, it pretty one-sided performance for you. But the guy hung in there pretty tough throughout the first 2 rounds and even into the third. But you landed that hook kick, and that was it in the third. As far as how it went down and played out, were there any surprises, or did he do something you weren't expecting, or vice versa?
It was, for the most part, 99% what I expected. I'll give him credit. I guess he said he hired a boxing coach. We came out, and I just remember when I took the center, I went to cut him off and push him back into the cage. And in the first 30 seconds, he cuts a really good angle to my right and circles off. And I'd never seen him do that in any of his fights. So I was like, okay, somebody's been working on their boxing. He was really trying not to let me pin him against the cage. Yeah, so I give him credit, man. He definitely he worked his ass off. He learned a little bit, and his footwork got better because that's a very deliberate step. People think you only do that to prevent somebody from cutting you off. It's a practice move. So hats off to him for that, and buckling down his boxing. Outside of that, what really surprised me was breaking my hand so early. Like, that was probably the second biggest surprise of the night. Was I broke my hand. Of 2 minutes in the first round, I broke my hand. And I was just like, oh, this sucks. This really sucks now.
And so I guess you would have realized that you broke your hand basically when you broke it? Like, it's not like you had the rest of the fight and you didn't realize it?
No, I immediately knew it was broken. I went back to, I don't know if they showed on, I went back to my corner. I'm kind of talking to Alex Zarate over my shoulder, but the inspector's right there. I didn't want to freak him out. I kind of turned to Zarate, and I'm like, I think I broke my hand. I knew it was broken immediately when I threw it immediately. The punch landed badly. He moved into the punch. It landed badly. And, I felt something give in my hand. And at first I thought, I was like, maybe it's just my glove. And I pulled it back. And he seen me start shaking my hand out. And by that point, it was hurting a little bit, but I thought it was fine. About a minute into the second round, I feel my hand start to swell, inside my glove. And I'm like, oh, crap, yeah, it's definitely broken.
That's crazy. That has to be pretty tough on you mentally. Not even pretty mentally or tough, but very tough just to get through.
The biggest part is, and the pain is one thing, the pain definitely makes you a little bit hesitant to use it. At one point in the second round, you see me throw a cross, and I left cross, and I just tap him on the nose. And it's just the weirdest touch. And everybody's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, mentally, instinctually, I pulled the punch because I was like, the impact concerned me. And I was like, it's not a perfect punch. I don't want to hurt the hand worse. The worst part is it changed my entire game plan. It made me have to lean back a little bit because I couldn't risk using the volume that we practiced and the volume that I've gotten used to throwing because I was afraid to land a bad punch and hurt myself worse. So it kind of changed the game plan to where I started jabbing a lot more orthodox southpaw matchup, the jab isn't usually the best the go-to tool. But I had no choice just because, the straight left was just not. It was a high risk at that point.
And I imagine you feel like you probably could have finished him a bit sooner in the fight had you not broken the hand?
I feel like I could have. I mean, the first punch I threw in the fight was a left body shot, and I hurt him bad. Every time I threw, in the beginning combinations, I hurt him. And then, once I got ready to use my hand, the combination stopped coming as much. I had to go back to sniping, which, you can damage a guy. It's hard to get follow-up shots when you're just sniping. So I feel like that definitely kind of shot me in the foot a little bit.
And I saw you mention on Facebook earlier that surgery is set for Wednesday. Is that correct?
Yeah, I just saw the surgeon today, so surgery's set for Wednesday. Puts me out about 12 weeks.
Okay, that's not too bad. I mean, considering I suppose things could be worse, but things could be better on that end of that as well. Now to, of course, the end of the fight. You win the fight in great fashion, third round knockout, very good win. And I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to you, but I think most people feel like you showed the most well-rounded game, the most complete game. I mean, your boxing looked very good, as it usually does in the fight and all of that. What was your reaction when Greg Hardy, when Alonzo Menifield got the contract, and you were not one of them?
Man, I was in the end. I only believe you because I've done some stooping. Everybody on the internet thought I was the most impressive guy that night, so I don't feel too bad. But I was in the ambulance on the way to the hospital when I found out, and I just remember putting my head down, man, I've tried to get in the UFC so many times. They say get a win streak, I got a win streak. They say get some finishes, I finish guys. They say do everything they said to do, I've done. And then I go here, I talk to guys in UFC, be like, it's all about winning and performing impressively and winning impressively. So I go out, I perform with one hand, I get a finish, the most impressive finish, and then still nothing. I just put my head down, I don't know what else you guys want me to do, man. Nobody seems to have an answer. And it's just, it was heartbreaking, honestly. I've put so much time into this, so much energy. I haven't seen my kids in 4 months. It's all of this just to be taken away by a guy who's making his debut, who can throw an overhand, and it's just I don't know, it's just heartbreaking.
And one question I forgot to ask, but I probably don't need to ask it, is because of what you mentioned earlier on. But when you did get the win, I assume you kind of thought it was a given that you were getting a contract?
I thought I was 100% sure. I did. I was entirely sure that I got it. There's no doubt in my mind. I'm there's one fight after me. I was just there's no way I don't.
And this whole situation has to be just so frustrating, devastating as well. I mean, because you put so much time into it, and as you said, they ask you to get a winning streak, they ask you to get finishes, you check both boxes, and nothing comes. It must be hard to put into words what you're feeling, even now.
It is, man. If people are people always keep your head up, that call is going to come soon. I'm you guys don't understand that you've heard this for the last 4 years of your life, and you've done so much. I've sacrificed so much time, so much energy, with my family, money, everything, stability. You've done everything they've asked of you, and it's still not enough. There's no way to explain what that does to you.
You also wrote on Facebook that this win felt meaningless. You don't often hear of a fighter who wins a fight and then goes on and calls a fight that, or a win that. Can you expand on that a little bit? I know, again, I get it, but why would you go that far and call it meaningless?
Because honestly, had I lost, I'd be in the exact same position. Unsigned with nothing, there was literally all I did was add a win to my column. That's it. I didn't increase anything. I didn't get anywhere. It's just, I've never won a fight and been man, outside of being paid, nothing came out of this.
That's interesting. So after the fight, after you realize that your hand is broken, you have to get surgery, you're not in the UFC, for whatever reason you didn't get signed, you announce your retirement. Was that, was that just your emotions getting the best of you, or are you for sure done?
No, I'm for sure done. This has been something it's something I considered for months now, and I was actually really on my way out last year. And Sam's like, finish this year out. You're so close. The Contender series coming back around. So I was like, I was already 30. I didn't want to be a prospect at 30. So I was like, you know what? I'm already 30. Screw it. I'll finish this year out. I'll go strong. We knew Contenders was coming up. I told myself, hey, I'm not going to be 31 years old and be a prospect still. Like, I refuse. Like, it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous. I mean, at some point you have to be able to realize when it's not going to happen. So I said, I talked to my family, talked to my kids, and I said, I'm going to go as hard as I can. And it just doesn't. I told them, I promise you, if this doesn't work out, that's it for me. Like, I'm not going to ask my family and my kids and everybody else to keep sacrificing for my dream right now when I don't have anything to show for it. So this was decided months ago.
Yeah, what are you feeling like right now? I mean, I'm sure stepping away from fighting something you love so much is hard, but I also appreciate, just as a person that covers the sport, I mean, so many fighters stay in this sport, continue fighting for way too long, and so it's nice to see someone walk away, definitely not late, if anything, a bit early, or earlier than you would think.
It is a little bit tough because, I mean, it's what I've done for the last 11 years. I've trained full-time for the last 9 years. So kind of figuring out what's next in my life is kind of hard. But, I mean, I'll be 31 in July. This is going to be the first major surgery I've had out of fighting, like my entire career. I've been really fortunate so far. I'm banged up. I've got injuries, but, pretty much everything works. I've still got all my faculties about me. I haven't sustained any major head trauma or anything. I've got a choice to either walk away now and enjoy my life while I can, or I can keep grinding on until something happens, I get hurt, or, I end up punch drunk with nothing to show for it still. So it hurts to walk away early, but when you look at it and there's nothing on the horizon, you have to decide. Every man has to decide when enough is enough. And, I think it's just part of being an adult, part of being a man is realizing, not everybody gets to win.
Do you think you can sort of use this retirement and show other fighters that just have a real tough time of leaving forever and letting go of the sport they love and showing fighters that, hey, don't stay in the sport forever. You're going to regret it later on in life. Do you think you can sort of use this and show other fighters that, hey, retiring a bit early, when you're 30, 31, don't have tons of head trauma, don't have tons of injuries, that's the way to go?
I think hopefully people realize, it's hard to tell. You can't tell another fighter when they should stop. Let's hope maybe someone will realize that unfortunately, no matter how good you are, the sport and the modern sport isn't about who the best guy is anymore. Just because you're the best guy doesn't mean you're going to make it. There's a lot more that goes into it. It's a lot more of a politics game and popularity contest. So you can be the best guy out there. I came up at a time where, you fought whoever and you fought the best guys to prove you're the best, but it's not that sport anymore. And it's just something to hopefully people realize before it's too late, is that it's not the sport that I grew up thinking it was anymore. It's definitely changed.
Often, or at least going by what they did on season 1 of the Contender series, often you see these guys early in the season, week 1, week 2, win impressively, still not get contracts, and then end up getting a second call, a second fight on Contender series, and then they get signed. I know Joby Sanchez, that's what happened to him last year. I was going to ask you whether there's any chance of that. I mean, say you get another call for Contender series, but then I realized 8 to 12 weeks for your hand injury, Contender series won't even be, still running, and so.
Yeah, it'll be next year. I'm not going to wait around for maybe the possibility of a maybe. I've done that for long enough, and I'm not going to put my life and everybody else's life on hold for a maybe anymore. I did everything they asked me to. If that's not good enough, I'm honestly just tired of jumping through hoops for people.
And I know this is also recent, so, again, things change, and perhaps this isn't the most fair of me to ask so soon, but what is the possibility of a comeback? Because we see so many fighters retire, and then a year, 2 years, or like GSP 4 years later, they come back. Is there any chance of the Action Man fighting again?
I don't honestly see it, just because I've seen so many people try to make that comeback, people that I know, people I've trained with, and it's never ended well for 99% of the population out there. So for me, if I'm going to stop, I'm going to be done completely. Like, you're not going to see me in the gym training. Like, I'm going to, move on with my life and go from there. I think the guys that hang around the gym and keep training, you leave that door open to come back. And I don't want to be somebody who's on the fence about it. If I'm going to walk away, I want to walk away completely.
Unless you do change your mind and come back to the sport, it's unfortunate, but you'll never be able to call yourself a UFC veteran. Nonetheless, are you satisfied with what you've done? 19-5 professionally with your MMA career overall. Are you happy?
Not at all, man. It's not what I set out to do. I didn't accomplish what I set out to do. I'm proud of the effort that I put in, but at the end result, I'm never going to be happy with it. Like, I never accomplished the, like my goal was to be a UFC fighter. It was, test myself against the best guys out there. I'm never going to be able to do that. So I'm proud of the effort I put in, but I'm not going to look back on my record with, like, pride, like, oh, I did it. It's, something I have to leave unfinished.
And you said earlier that had you lost this fight, it would have been instant retirement for you. And then, of course, as we saw later in the night, even, with a win and without the contract, you still retired. Now, this is probably a stupid question, but had you got signed, you would have kept going for a little while at least?
Yeah, my entire goal is always to be, I want to see where I am. Like I was like a couple minutes before, I spent years wondering if I was good enough. Like, the only thing worse than not knowing if you're good enough is never getting a chance to figure it out. So, I mean, like, yeah, had I gotten signed, I would have gone until I couldn't go anymore. And I would love to have seen how far I could go and where I was and where I could be, but that's unfortunately an opportunity that wasn't afforded to me.
Can you think of one moment that stands out in your, very extensive MMA career? Is there one moment, whether a title win or a fight or anything, that really stands out as this was the best moment of my MMA career?
I think winning my CES belt for the first time was the first major belt I won, and it was the first of the three major belts. It was the first one where I went to a fight to where, if you look at the reviews, the topology, everything else, they gave me no chance. So no one gave me a chance of winning, man. I think I was at like 1% chance of victory. I was completely demolished a guy on TV, and I got to say I'm here. Like, here I am. That was probably a big moment for me.
Can you just remind me which fight was that? Was that the Gilda Freitas fight, or?
Gilda Freitas, yep. The Gilda Freitas when I had like 1% chance of winning. They had the typology, the betting odds were insanely like abysmal for me, and I stopped him in the first round. And you have to say, here I am, so that was a great moment.
That's crazy. As far as what is next in the life of Chris Curtis, what is next? I know you mentioned your family. You haven't seen your kids in the past 4 months, so I'm sure that is at the top of the priority list. But as far as work goes, how are you going to pay the bills, and what is next for you in your life?
Man, I don't know. I guess I gotta find a real job and go from there. I don't really know yet. I've got a little bit of money to help me figure out what's going on. So, I gotta get on that, but I have to do it like right away, no rush. I can kind of sit back and look at my options. But man, I really don't know yet. I feel like I really should have spent more time thinking about this, but I honestly never expected not to get a contract.
Yeah. I guess that definitely was a surprise, one of the bigger ones of your career, perhaps. You mentioned your family, again, your kids, you haven't seen them in 4 months. Can you just sort of explain, like, the scenario as far as you training? Of course, you're down in California training. Does your family not live in California?
No, my family lives, my kids live back in Ohio. So
okay.
I left, actually, I came out here at the very end of February, and it just sucks because, I've been gone the last 3 years. I've been gone for most of the years, as opposed to being home. So, I came out in February. My little girl's birthday was February 23rd, and I was supposed to have left February 20th, and, she cried because I missed her birthday last year. So I put my trip back. I stayed. I left the 24th, and I've been gone since then. And, it's just, it's hard. Regardless, it's hard, but if I was out here making money and, getting ahead, I would at least look in the eye and say, okay, I understand. It hurts, but this is how I'm taking care of you. But mainly right now, I can't even say that. So I'm like, what am I doing out here?
I suppose that's a big part of the retirement. I mean, again, your family's everything for, and if you can't make it any further, then yeah, I guess as you said, what's the point? Which is unfortunate.
It just sucks. I mean, they've been really supportive of me chasing my dream, but at some point, I gotta do that. I gotta think about something other than like what my dream is, and be a little bit more responsible. So it sucks, but it is what it is. Like it's part of being an adult.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time. It's always a pleasure talking to you. It's been a while. I believe the last time we spoke was back in April of 2017. It actually felt longer than that, to be honest. But
it's been a while. Wow.
It has been. So that was the first time we spoke, and this was the second. But I'm sure we'll talk again, and whether that's about a comeback in 2 years or your real job, as you said, only time will tell. Thank you again for the time. Congratulations again on the victory. Before I let you go, remind my audience where they can find you on social media, and if there's anybody you'd like to thank or give a shout out to, the floor is yours.
I just want to thank everybody from Team Class, Son of Siam, Jordan Griffin, all my sponsors back home. I couldn't have made it that far without you guys. Thank you. I love you guys. And social media, I think I'm getting rid of most of it, but I think I will leave my Instagram up. So ActionMan513, I think that'll be my last thing. I'm going to get rid of the rest of the crap because I use it mostly for fighting anyway. So I'll probably leave my Instagram, ActionMan513. Drop me a line, say, hey, you hate me, it doesn't really matter. I always like talking to people. I got time to kill.